The rain fell like punishment from the gods that night, each drop slicing through the cold air, soaking the ancient stones of Barkathia's marketplace. The kind of night when even the moon hid behind clouds, unwilling to witness the cruelty of men. The torches hissed under the storm, their flames shivering, fighting to stay alive against the downpour. Chains clinked against the marble columns. The scent of wet iron, smoke, and wolf blood hung heavy in the air. And somewhere within that chaos, she ran. Her name was Lyra. Barefoot. Broken. Her torn gown clung to her skin like another wound. Her breath came out in ragged gasps as she stumbled through the narrow alleys, her feet slicing open on the cobblestones slick with rain and filth. Behind her, the echoes of fury grew louder, voices shouting, boots slamming against stone, torches moving like angry stars in the darkness. The cursed one, they roared. The flame-born traitor. She pressed herself against the wall, trembling. The marble was cold, unforgiving. She could still feel the sting on her back, each lash of the whip a cruel reminder that tonight was supposed to be her mating ceremony. Her night. Her beginning. Instead, it had become her sentence. Somewhere in the distance, a horn blew. The sound crawled into her bones. She knew what it meant. They were closing in. Lyra looked down at her wrist. The mark pulsed faintly under her skin, a glow that refused to die. Silver, like liquid moonlight. She covered it with her palm, desperate, whispering to herself, begging it to fade. But it wouldn't. It never did. That mark was her curse and her birthright. And no matter how hard she tried, she could never erase it. Her breath came faster. She pressed a shaking hand to her mouth to keep quiet, but tears betrayed her, spilling hot against her cold skin. The world had turned against her so quickly, and for what? For being different? For carrying a fire she never asked for? A shout broke the air. Find her. The Alpha King commands it. Her whole body froze. Even the rain seemed to stop for a heartbeat. The Alpha King. Kael. The name burned through her chest like the lash of a whip. She had known he would come. He always did. No one defied him and lived. No one. Her heart pounded so violently she could hear it echoing inside her skull. She could already imagine his eyes, gold, like sunlight cutting through fog. Eyes that had once watched her with something like fascination, now filled with judgment. The storm held, wind clawing through the alley, and Lyra pushed herself off the wall. Her legs ached. Her back screamed. But she ran again. Because she had no other choice. Because the idea of falling into his hands tonight, of standing beneath his gaze as he condemned her in front of them all, that was worse than death. Her feet splashed through puddles, her body trembling from cold and fear. Her breath hitched as she turned the corner, straight into the marketplace. The space stretched wide, surrounded by towering columns, the kind that had once seen the rise of emperors. Now, they held chains and cages. The ghosts of the ancient world seemed to linger in the air, whispering through the rain, watching this new cruelty unfold in their sacred ground. She could still see where the criminals had been auctioned in the old days, right there, beneath the marble arch. The same place where they now held mating ceremonies. The same place where she would have stood beside Kael tonight, crowned with silver leaves, her bond sealed in blood and vow. But fate had never favored her. She stumbled forward, pain slicing up her spine, her hands clutching at the stone for balance. The rain washed blood down her back in thin red rivers. The sky cracked open again, thunder splitting the heavens. For a moment, she looked up at it, blinking against the rain, whispering to no one, "Why me?" The wind answered with silence. In the distance, she saw torches gathering again. Guards, hunters, maybe even wolves. Their shadows moved with purpose. Her time was running out. Something inside her stirred then. Something she had buried deep for years. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was anger. A low, simmering pulse beneath her ribs. Her blood began to thrum, her skin prickling as though it remembered who she really was. But she fought it. She had promised herself she'd never let it out again. Not after what happened last time. Not after the fire. The ground trembled slightly beneath her, responding to her heartbeat. The rain hissed louder, as if trying to drown her power before it could awaken. Stay down, she whispered to herself. Stay small. Stay invisible. But power never listened. It was alive. It always wanted to breathe. Then, she heard it, his voice. Low, sharp, echoing across the stones. Enough. The word silenced the entire market. Even the rain seemed to pause between drops. Lyra's chest tightened. That voice was made to command. She didn't have to see him to know he was close. Every part of her body reacted, the way it always did around him. Fear. Fury. Something dangerously close to longing. She pressed herself deeper into the shadows, her wet hair clinging to her face, her breath trembling. She could see them now, soldiers kneeling as the figure stepped forward through the mist. Cloaked in black, tall, broad-shouldered, the torchlight catching the edges of his armor. The Alpha King. Kael. He moved like the storm obeyed him, like the world itself held its breath in his presence. The crowd parted, murmuring, bowing, their torches lowering as he passed. She saw his face for just a moment, and the sight stole her breath. Rain slid down his cheekbones. His golden eyes glowed faintly beneath his hood. He looked both human and something more, something older. A creature that carried centuries of command in his silence. Lyra felt her throat close. Every instinct screamed at her to run. Yet her body wouldn't move. It was as if his presence pinned her to the earth. Then his gaze shifted, and found her. It was like being struck by lightning. His eyes locked onto hers across the darkness. The noise of the crowd vanished. The rain fell slower. Time itself fractured. Her stomach twisted. He shouldn't have been able to see her. She was hidden behind the pillar, half-shadowed. But of course, he could. He always could. He started walking toward her. Each step echoed like a drumbeat. She pressed herself against the wall, trembling. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She could smell him now, earth, rain, and something wilder, like smoke from burning cedar. He stopped just inches from her. Close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body even through the storm. When he spoke, his voice was softer, but it carried a weight that made her bones ache. Lyra. She flinched. No one had said her real name aloud since the night she was taken. Hearing it again broke something open inside her. How do you, her voice caught, small, cracked. I always knew it was you, he said. His gaze burned into her. You were never meant to hide from me. Her heart slammed against her ribs. You don't know what I am. He stepped closer, his breath mixing with hers. I do. That's why you were chosen. Chosen. The word tasted like poison. She shook her head, backing away, but he caught her wrist. His touch was fire, searing, commanding, terrifyingly familiar. The mark beneath her skin pulsed against his fingers, light bleeding through his palm. He stared down at it, his jaw tightening, as if the sight of it pained him. Then, quietly, almost to himself, he said, "It's real." The moment stretched. She could feel the storm shifting again, like the sky itself was listening to them. She wanted to scream. She wanted to strike him. She wanted to ask why fate had tied her to him, her executioner, her tormentor, her mate. But her throat refused to work. Kael's eyes softened, just barely. You shouldn't have run. Her voice trembled, but she met his gaze. You shouldn't have found me. For a heartbeat, something unspoken passed between them, recognition, regret, maybe even longing. Then the sound of approaching guards broke it apart. Kael's expression hardened again. The king's mask returned. He turned toward the soldiers, voice sharp as steel. She's mine. No one touches her. Lyra's chest constricted. His claim was not protection. It was a sentence. He turned back to her, rain dripping from his lashes. You're coming with me. She swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. And if I refuse? His lips curved, not in amusement, but in something far more dangerous. Then I'll carry you. She felt the world tilt. Part of her wanted to fight him, to vanish into the storm. Another part, the traitorous part, felt the faint pull of something older than choice. Because deep down, beneath the fear, beneath the pain, she could feel it. That connection. That impossible thread that bound her to him. Her pulse synced with his. Her breath hitched when his hand loosened but didn't let go. For a moment, everything else disappeared, the shouts, the rain, the world. Just them. The cursed one and the Alpha King. Bound by something they both didn't want but couldn't escape. And somewhere deep inside, buried under the fear and betrayal, a whisper rose from within her. You are not weak. You are not done. But she didn't believe it. Not yet. Because tonight, her story didn't feel like destiny. It felt like punishment. And she knew one thing with terrifying certainty: whatever waited for her beyond this night would burn. If you're drawn to tales of forbidden love and untamed hearts, subscribe to Sophie's Romance Collections, where every story ignites the fire within. The air thickened when he said her name. Lyra. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't even loud. But it carried, cutting through the rain and the noise like the sound had been made only for her. The torches flickered as if they, too, knew that something sacred had just been spoken. For a heartbeat, she forgot to breathe. That name had been buried. Erased. Even she hadn't dared whisper it for years. Yet he said it like he'd owned it all along. Lightning clawed across the sky, throwing his face into sharp relief, the hard lines, the wet strands of dark hair clinging to his temple, the faint scar along his jaw that made him look carved by war itself. The Alpha King. Kael. Every story she'd ever heard of him spoke of power, brutal, merciless, absolute. But none had warned her how human he could look standing there, rain running down his armor, gold eyes lit from within by something that wasn't quite anger, and wasn't mercy either. She tried to speak, to ask how he knew her name, but her voice broke before it could become sound. He moved first. The distance between them vanished in a few long strides. His cloak brushed against her knees as he stopped, towering over her. The scent of him reached her, smoke, rain, and something feral underneath, the kind of scent that made the animal inside her stir against her will. His hand shot out and caught her arm. Not gently. The strength behind his grip was enough to make her gasp. Her skin burned where he touched her. The mark on her wrist flared, silver bleeding into the dark, as if recognizing the one who had been tied to her long before tonight. For a heartbeat, everything else disappeared, the shouts, the guards, the thunder. There was only the pulse of her blood and the steady, unnerving calm in his face. He looked down at where her blood mingled with the rain on his hand. His thumb brushed against her skin, and something like conflict flickered across his features. The storm around them seemed to hold its breath. Then he whispered, low enough that only she could hear, "I've waited centuries for you." Her body went rigid. The words struck deeper than any blow. Waited? Centuries? It couldn't be true. She wanted to laugh, to call him mad, but the look in his eyes silenced her. There was no madness there, only certainty. As if his entire existence had been a long, unending search that had now found its answer, and she was it. She tried to pull away, but his grip didn't loosen. "Let me go," she managed, her voice shaking. He met her gaze, unflinching. "You think I can?" His tone wasn't cruel. It was heavy, burdened, as though he were trapped too. And maybe he was. The thought sent a strange ache through her chest. She wanted to hate him. She needed to. This was the man who had ordered the hunt, the one who ruled the wolves that chained her, the king who had turned her ceremony into a public punishment. Yet standing this close, she could feel something dangerous humming beneath her anger, something that felt like recognition, like memory, like the faint pull of a bond she'd tried to outrun all her life. "Why me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper over the rain. Kael's eyes darkened, and for a moment she thought he might not answer. Then he said, "Because the moment you were born, the old gods marked you. And they marked me to find you." She stared at him, stunned. "That's not fate. That's cruelty." He almost smiled, but it wasn't amusement. It was grief wearing the shape of a smile. "It's both." The torches hissed as the wind pushed against them. The guards shifted uneasily, unsure if they should move. Kael didn't take his eyes off her as he raised his free hand, commanding them with a single word. "Stand down." The obedience was immediate. They stepped back, heads bowed. The power in his voice wasn't just authority, it was instinctual, woven into the marrow of everyone who heard it. But even as the guards withdrew, Lyra felt the invisible leash tighten around her. His command didn't release her. It only drew her deeper into his orbit. He studied her, his thumb still resting against the pulse at her wrist. "You've been running for so long," he said softly. "Did you think you could escape what you are?" Her breath caught. "I wasn't running from what I am," she said. "I was running from what people do to those like me." His gaze sharpened. "And what are you, Lyra?" The way he said her name, slow, deliberate, made her chest tighten. She wanted to lie. To tell him she didn't know. But she couldn't. Not with him standing there, golden eyes cutting through every defense she tried to build. "I'm cursed," she said finally. "That's what they tell me." He leaned closer, his breath warm despite the cold. "No," he murmured. "You're chosen." The word shivered through her. It didn't feel like comfort. It felt like a sentence. She shook her head. "You don't know me." His voice dropped lower, almost a growl. "I know enough. I know you were born with fire that could burn kingdoms. I know they tried to bury you because they feared what you'd become. And I know the bond between us wasn't made by men. It was made by something older. Wilder." She swallowed hard, her throat dry despite the rain. His words pressed against the truth she'd spent her life denying. The fire. The mark. The dreams that haunted her, always of him, though she'd never seen his face until now. Still, she couldn't let him be right. "You think this connection means anything?" she said. "You think it gives you the right to claim me?" Kael's eyes flickered, the gold deepening to amber. "It doesn't give me the right," he said. "It gives me the curse." There's a difference. Something inside her faltered. He wasn't mocking her. He wasn't even angry. There was exhaustion in his voice, as if he'd been carrying this truth for far too long. The rain softened to a mist, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and tension. He released her wrist, slowly, as if every muscle fought the command. Her skin tingled where his fingers had been, the ghost of his touch refusing to fade. Without the weight of his hand, she should have felt free. Instead, she felt hollow. He took a step back, studying her like a man trying to memorize something he feared he'd lose. "You should come with me," he said quietly. "Before they forget who I am and do something I can't forgive." Her instinct screamed no. Every lesson, every scar, told her not to trust him. Yet a part of her, the part that remembered the stories whispered by the fire when she was a child, hesitated. "You're my enemy," she said. Kael's eyes didn't waver. "Then why do you tremble every time I say your name?" The word sank deep, unraveling her composure. She wanted to deny it, but her body betrayed her. Her pulse raced. Her breath hitched. And he noticed. He always noticed. He turned, his cloak snapping behind him as he faced the gathered crowd. They were watching, restless, confused, waiting for him to deliver judgment. His voice rose, cold and precise. "The Flameborn will answer only to me. Anyone who disobeys will answer to their king." The effect was instant. No one moved. No one dared. The crowd lowered their heads, the rain mixing with the scent of fear. Lyra's chest tightened. She wasn't sure if she'd just been saved or claimed. Kael looked at her once more. "You can hate me later," he said. "Right now, you need to live long enough to understand why." She stared back at him, jaw clenched, heart pounding. "And if I refuse?" He met her defiance with quiet certainty. "You won't." Lightning flared again, turning his eyes to molten gold. The moment stretched between them, the predator and the prey, the king and the cursed one, bound by something that neither of them could undo. And for the first time, she saw it, the thing behind his control, behind the armor of command. It wasn't cruelty. It was conflict. A deep, unbearable longing that mirrored her own. She didn't understand it. She didn't trust it. But she felt it. And that terrified her more than any whip, any punishment, any prophecy. When he finally turned and began to walk away, she stayed where she was, the sound of his footsteps echoing in her chest like a second heartbeat. The guards followed, but none dared touch her. As his figure disappeared into the mist, she pressed her palm against the mark on her wrist. It was still warm from his touch, still glowing faintly beneath her skin. She hated that part of her didn't want it to fade. The storm moved overhead, distant thunder rolling like the growl of some ancient beast watching them both. Lyra closed her eyes, breath trembling. She didn't know what frightened her more, the man who claimed to have waited centuries for her, or the part of her that believed him. The marble beneath her bare feet was cold enough to bite. Every echo of her step trailed like a whisper through the long corridors, haunted, rhythmic, endless. Kael walked ahead, silent, the black cloak dragging shadows in his wake. The hall stretched like a cathedral carved from moonlight and bone, high arches etched with runes older than the kingdom, walls glimmering with faint veins of gold that pulsed as if alive. Lyra followed, bound not by chains, but by the invisible pull that had ignited between them the moment he said her name. She tried to fight it, tried to focus on the stone, the flicker of torches, anything that wasn't him. But his scent, cedar and smoke, a quiet danger, filled every breath. Her pulse quickened. The corridors blurred. And then, the memory struck. Fire. Screams. Her mother's voice slicing through chaos. Hide the mark. She'd been only a child, trembling behind the crumbling wall of their cottage, watching flames devour everything she'd ever known. Soldiers had stormed through the village like wolves gone rabid, eyes gleaming silver under the moon. One of them had dragged her from the shadows, steel gauntlet pressing against her throat. She remembered the way his eyes widened. Not from pity, but from fear, when her palms flared with light and silver fire erupted from her skin. That was the first time she'd killed. The first time she'd realized she wasn't like the others. The fire had consumed him before she even understood what she'd done. When it cleared, she'd seen her mother, half-burned, half-broken, whispering her final words through blood and ash. "Run, my child. The moon will never forgive you." Lyra blinked. The marble corridor sharpened back into focus. Her hands were trembling. Kael glanced over his shoulder. "Your memories betray you," he said quietly. Her jaw tightened. "You know nothing of them." "I know enough," he said. "Fire doesn't choose the weak." Her voice cut sharp. "And what does it choose? The damned?" He didn't answer. His silence was heavy, like a confession unspoken. The air shifted as they reached the doors of the Alpha Court, massive obsidian slabs engraved with sigils that pulsed faintly beneath the torchlight. 2 guards opened them without a word. Beyond lay a chamber that shimmered with restrained power, moonlight spilling through arched windows, banners of deep crimson hanging from gilded pillars. The scent of pine and smoke hung thick in the air. He led her to the center, where a circular mosaic sprawled across the floor, a wolf carved in stone, its eyes inlaid with molten gold. Lyra stared at it, heart pounding. She'd seen that wolf before, not here, but in her dreams, the ones that left her gasping in the dark. Her voice trembled despite her defiance. "Why am I here, Kael?" He turned to her slowly. His gaze was unreadable, his expression carved from restraint. Because the prophecy ends, or begins, with you. Lyra's laugh was bitter, broken. Prophecies are just excuses for men like you to play gods. Maybe, he said. But this one was written in blood long before either of us breathed. His words pressed into her, pulling at the edges of her resolve. She wanted to scream, to demand he release her, to tell him that the gods he spoke of were nothing but cruel architects of suffering. But deep down, in the place where she still felt the mark's warmth under her skin, she knew he wasn't wrong. She'd been hunted for it her entire life. The mark of the Flameborn, branded at birth across her wrist. To the Pax, it was a curse, a reminder of an ancient betrayal when fire and moonlight warred for dominion. But to Kael, it seemed to be something else entirely, an omen, a calling. The chamber flickered with light as torches flared to life, illuminating the ancient throne at the far end. Its frame was carved from black stone, its seat draped in fur, its presence demanding reverence. Kael stopped before it and turned. "Do you know what they called your kind?" Her eyes narrowed. "Monsters." He shook his head. "Salvations." The word lingered, heavy, wrong. "You think I was born to save you?" she asked, disbelief lacing her tone. "I think you were born to decide whether we deserve saving," he replied. Lyra's breath faltered. The conviction in his voice unsettled her more than any threat could have. She took a step back. "You don't know me." "I've seen you," he said, voice low. "Every century, in dreams I can't escape. Every lifetime, your fire burns through me before the dawn takes you again. You are the same soul, reborn through ruin, always running." Her stomach twisted. His words felt too precise, too intimate, as if he'd looked through her, seen the parts she'd buried even from herself. "Stop," she whispered. "You talk like you've lived forever." His gaze darkened. "Perhaps I have." The silence that followed stretched taut. The firelight trembled against the polished marble, painting his features in molten gold and shadow. For a moment, she saw not a king but a man, burdened, ancient, dangerous in his tenderness. She tore her gaze away, clutching her wrist where the mark still glowed faintly beneath her skin. "You think fate ties us," she said. "But fate doesn't chain people. It breaks them." Kael's expression softened. "Then let it break us together." Something inside her cracked at that, not enough to surrender, but enough to ache. She wanted to hate him for his certainty, for the quiet gravity that made her chest tighten every time he looked at her like that. The memory of her exile surged next, the high priest's voice booming over the gathering, cold and certain. "The child of fire will devour the moon." The Pax had turned away, eyes filled with fear, mothers clutching their children as if her presence were plague. She'd been thrown to the outskirts, forced to hide in the ashes of what remained. For years, she'd lived by silence and shadow, never daring to let her light burn again. And now, under Kael's gaze, that buried spark trembled awake. He saw it too. The faint shimmer of light that rose along her skin, like embers stirring beneath glass. "Control it," he murmured. She tried. Gods, she tried. But his voice, deep, calm, commanding, only fed the fire instead of quieting it. The air shimmered, heat coiling around her like invisible tendrils. She could feel his heartbeat, steady, close, pulling hers into rhythm. "Stop looking at me," she said, but it came out as a plea, not an order. "I can't," he whispered. "Every time I look away, the world stops making sense." The words burned worse than the fire itself. Her pulse surged, the flames flickered higher, dancing around her hands. The mosaic beneath her feet began to glow. Kael moved closer, the heat licking at his skin, but he didn't flinch. His eyes held hers with unyielding calm. "Breathe," he said. Lyra forced air into her lungs, though it came out ragged, heavy. The fire abated slowly, reluctantly, dimming to a low shimmer. When the last ember faded, exhaustion hit her like a wave. She swayed. Kael caught her before she fell, his arm firm around her waist. Her body went still at the contact. His hand was warm, steady, yet the energy between them sparked, the same dangerous current she'd felt the first time he touched her. "Let go," she said weakly. He didn't. His breath brushed her temple. "You'll fall." "Maybe I'm meant to." Kael's grip tightened, his jaw flexing. "Not yet." Their eyes met again, too close, too deep. For a moment, the world outside the chamber ceased to exist. The guards, the moonlight, the murmurs of prophecy, all dissolved into the space between their breaths. Lyra felt it then, the echo of the bond she'd spent her life denying. Not a chain. A recognition. A mirror. Two halves of a wound that never healed because it was never meant to. But she couldn't give in. Not to him. Not when the same hands that steadied her had once ordered her capture. She drew back sharply, breaking from his hold. Her heart pounded, her voice shaking. "Whatever you think this is, it's not love. It's a curse." Kael's eyes flickered with something unreadable, pain, maybe, or patience stretched to its limit. "You speak as if love and curses aren't the same thing." She wanted to deny it. To turn, to run. But the truth in his tone stopped her cold. Outside, thunder rolled, distant, low, like the world exhaling. The sound filled the silence between them, heavy with everything neither dared say. At last, Kael turned from her and faced the moonlight spilling through the high windows. His voice was quiet, almost reverent. "The ceremony begins at dawn." Lyra's chest tightened. "And what happens then?" He didn't look back. "You'll understand what you are." "I already do," she said. "No," he murmured. "You've only seen the shadow of it." She wanted to ask what that meant, but he was already walking away, his footsteps echoing across the marble. The torches dimmed as he passed, the air cooling in his absence. When the doors closed behind him, the silence pressed down like weight. Lyra sank to her knees on the cold floor, her pulse still racing. Her hands trembled as she stared at the faint shimmer of firelight still dancing beneath her skin. It terrified her, not just the power, but how alive it felt under his gaze. She'd spent years burying her flame, teaching herself to be small, invisible. Yet one look from him had undone all of it. And worse, a part of her didn't want to bury it anymore. As the moon climbed higher, she rose slowly, her reflection glimmering in the polished marble. The mark on her wrist pulsed once, faint but steady, like a heart answering a call. In the distance, she heard the echo of his voice again, low and sure, threaded with the same truth that terrified her most. "You were never meant to hide." The fire within her stirred in reply. The air beneath the colossus of wolves was colder than death itself. Lyra could taste the ancient dust of centuries as Kael led her down the narrow spiral stairway carved deep into the mountain's belly. The deeper they went, the thicker the silence became, pressing against her ears until even the sound of their breathing seemed swallowed by the dark. The only light came from the torches Kael carried, and from the faint silver glow pulsing beneath her skin. The tunnel widened suddenly into an underground expanse that stole her breath. The temple was vast, built long before the Empire's birth, long before wolves took kingdoms and crowned themselves gods. Pillars rose like the ribs of a buried giant, each carved with runes that shimmered faintly when she passed. In the center stood a statue of a wolf so massive its head brushed the cavern's ceiling, its eyes hollow but alive with flickering fire. Lyra stopped, shivering as her gaze met that empty stare. "This place," her voice trembled. "It feels alive." Kael's torchlight painted the edges of his face in golden shadow. "It remembers," he said quietly. "Every oath, every betrayal, every drop of blood spilled for power." She took another step forward, and the air shifted, a low hum, like the world holding its breath. Symbols etched into the walls began to glow, one after another, in a slow circle around them. Ancient words whispered through the chamber. Not in sound, but in thought, brushing against her consciousness like ghosts. "The flame returns to the Fong. The circle is closing." Her pulse raced. "What does that mean?" Before Kael could answer, a shape moved from the darkness, an elder wolf, his fur streaked with silver and ash, his body half shadow, half spirit. He knelt before her, head bowed so low his snout touched the stone. "The flame returns to the Fang," he murmured, voice trembling. "The circle is closing." Kael's jaw tightened. "She is the marked one." The elder raised his gaze, and in those clouded eyes, Lyra saw something she hadn't expected. Fear. She shook her head. "No. I'm not." But the words died on her tongue as pain ignited along her wrist. The mark, that cursed crescent she'd tried to hide her whole life, began to burn, silver and red intertwining like fire and moonlight colliding. The light spread through her veins, searing and electric, until it reached her heart. The temple shook. Visions struck her all at once, violent, relentless. Oceans of blood stretching under silver moons. Wolves turning against each other, their howls swallowed by storm. A mountain collapsing into fire. And then, Kael. His body broken, his eyes fading, her hands drenched in his blood. "No," she gasped, clutching her chest. The vision shifted, his hand reaching for hers, whispering her name as the world burned around them. When she came back to herself, she was on her knees, breath shallow, palms pressed into the cold stone. Kael knelt beside her, voice low but sharp. "What did you see?" She met his gaze, her eyes wide with terror. "You. Dead. Everything, gone." His expression hardened, but she caught the flicker of pain behind his composure. "Prophecies lie," he said softly. "They show what can be, not what must." Lyra's voice broke. "Then why does it feel like truth?" He looked away. "Because every destiny worth fearing does." The mark still burned, the pattern now visible even through her skin. A crescent entwined with a flame, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Kael rose slowly and stepped toward the colossal wolf statue. His hand brushed its stone paw, tracing the grooves of the ancient carvings. "The first alpha was born here," he said. "A god in wolf's skin. He forged our bloodlines with the promise that flame and Fang would never unite again." Lyra's breath hitched. "Why?" "Because the last time they did," Kael said, turning toward her, "the world almost ended." Her pulse hammered. "And now you think it will again?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence told her everything. She rose, unsteady but defiant. "So what am I supposed to do? Except that I'm a weapon in some ancient game you all started long before I was born?" "You were not created to destroy," he said. "You were born to decide who deserves to live when the old gods wake again." The words sent a chill through her spine. "That's not a destiny. That's a curse." Kael stepped closer, his presence tightening the air between them. "Maybe. But curses and prophecies are two sides of the same coin. One burns the world. The other remakes it." Lyra's throat ached. "And what if I can't control it? What if I choose wrong?" "Then I burn with you," he said without hesitation. Her heart faltered. There was no tremor in his voice, no calculation, just quiet certainty that unsettled her more than any prophecy ever could. Lightning crackled beyond the cracks in the cavern roof, illuminating the ancient carvings. The symbols now pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, the whole chamber alive, reacting to her presence. The elder wolf bowed again, whispering, "The mark of choice, it awakens." Lyra stared at her wrist, her pulse roaring in her ears. She didn't feel chosen. She felt cornered, a girl burdened by power she never asked for, by a destiny written in the blood of strangers. "Why me?" she whispered. "Why can't it be someone else?" Kael's gaze softened, though pain flickered behind his golden eyes. "Because the gods don't choose the willing. They choose the ones who bleed." Her knees threatened to give out again. He caught her before she could fall, his hand steady against the small of her back. The contact sent a spark through her veins, reigniting the fire she'd just managed to quiet. "Don't touch me," she breathed, though she didn't pull away. "Tell me to let go," he said quietly. She looked up, and the world tilted. His eyes weren't just gold anymore, they burned like molten suns, reflecting the same fire that now blazed inside her. Her breath hitched. "Kael. Your fire and my blood were never meant to meet," he said. But fate didn't ask for permission. The mark flared again, brighter this time, until the entire temple glowed with it. The carvings, the air, even the colossal wolf's eyes blazed to life, filled with an ancient, terrible awareness. The ground shook violently. The elder howled, bowing low, his voice trembling. "The prophecy returns. The flame of the moon. The bond reborn." Kael pulled Lyra against him, shielding her as debris fell from above. "Stay with me," he commanded. She tried, but her vision blurred, her pulse uneven. The fire inside her felt too vast, too wild. She could feel it clawing at her insides, desperate to break free. "Kael. I'm here," he said, voice breaking through the chaos like an anchor. "Breathe." The tremors slowed. The glow dimmed. But something had changed. The mark on her wrist no longer pulsed alone, it beat in sync with his heart. Her eyes widened. "What did you do?" Kael's hand tightened around hers. "I bound it." "You what?" "I linked your power to mine," he said. "It was the only way to keep it from consuming you." Anger flared in her chest, raw and fierce. "You had no right." "I had no choice," he snapped, voice echoing through the chamber. The sound of it shook something deep inside her. "If I hadn't, this temple, and you, would be ash." Silence followed, broken only by the faint hum of the runes. His chest rose and fell, his expression raw, all the power and arrogance stripped away, leaving only a man teetering between duty and desire. Lyra stared at him, the heat of fury and fear and something dangerously close to longing burning through her veins. "You should have let me burn," she whispered. Kael's jaw clenched. "Don't tempt me, Lyra. You have no idea what it takes to watch the person you're fated to destroy." The words hit harder than any blow. She stepped back, her voice shaking. "Then why save me?" "Because I'd rather burn with you than rule without you." The truth in his tone was almost unbearable. She wanted to deny it, to push him away, but she couldn't. Because she'd seen it too, in the visions, his death, her tears, the way his blood had stained her hands. Maybe fate wasn't cruel. Maybe it was simply honest. The elder's voice rose again, echoing through the chamber like a forgotten prayer. "The one with the mark will stand at the end of all things. Flame or Fong, she must choose." The light around them faded, leaving only the glow of her mark and the dim fire of Kael's torch. Lyra turned away, her throat tight, the words pressing like thorns against her heart. "I'm not your savior," she whispered. "I'm your warning." Kael's voice was soft, almost reverent. "And maybe both are what we need." The silence that followed was heavy, not empty, but alive. The prophecy hung between them like a blade, gleaming, patient. Somewhere deep within the temple, the wolf's eyes dimmed back into stone. But the echo of its growl lingered, rolling through the dark as if the gods themselves had stirred. And for the first time in her life, Lyra understood what it meant to be chosen, not as a blessing, but as a burden that would demand everything she was and everything she loved. The fire in her veins whispered to her, gentle but relentless. "You are not a weapon. You are the flame that decides who burns." And as Kael reached for her hand once more, she didn't pull away. Not because she forgave him, but because she needed to know how far this destiny would burn before it consumed them both. Rain pours over the marble stands as if the heavens themselves are mourning. The ceremony ground burns with the echo of thousands, wolves and humans, bound by law, blinded by fear. The scent of wet fur, smoke, and blood thickens the air. Chains bite into Lyra's wrists, cold and cruel. Each link is etched with the sigil of the Alpha Court, a reminder that she is bound not by choice, but by decree. The golden cuffs shimmer in the torchlight, mocking her freedom. Her breath catches when Kael steps into view. His presence is an eclipse, dark, magnetic, swallowing every flicker of light around him. The twin moons hang behind his figure like witnesses to a crime no one dares name. His crown glints obsidian black, carved from the spine of the first wolf king. Power hums from him in waves. It should feel protective, but tonight, it feels like judgment. The priests chant, their voices merging into a single tone that shakes the bones of the arena. Beneath the chants, whispers spread like smoke. The cursed one. The fire witch. The half-breed who defied fate. Lyra keeps her gaze low, trying not to let their words burrow too deep, but her heart beats hard enough to drown them out. Kael's gaze never leaves her. She can feel it, that heavy pull that both burns and soothes. Every nerve in her body tightens, waiting. Hoping. Dreading. He steps closer, the hem of his cloak brushing against her bare feet. When he speaks, his voice cuts through the noise like a blade. Tonight, the moon witnesses a binding of prophecy and power. The flame and the fawn shall unite, or perish. But his tone carries something else beneath the surface, hesitation. Pain. A council elder steps forward, eyes sharp, voice trembling with outrage. You would defy the old laws? She carries the curse of the flame. The mark of ruin. She cannot be queen. Gasps ripple through the crowd. The tension thickens until even the torches seem to flicker slower. Kael does not answer. His silence is a storm gathering behind his golden eyes. Lyra's pulse hammers as she dares to look at him, and what she sees there cuts deeper than any blade. Conflict. Guilt. A hunger he cannot bury. The elder snarls, spittle flying. Do you not see what she is? She will destroy everything the packs have built. Kael's jaw tightens. The muscles in his forearms flex beneath his armor. For a heartbeat, the air holds still. Then, a rival alpha steps forward from the crowd, broad-shouldered, eyes silver like frost. His voice booms across the stone. If you will not end her, Kael, then I will. I challenge your claim. The arena erupts. Shouts, growls, howls. The drums begin, pounding like a heartbeat, ancient, brutal, inevitable. Kael's gaze flicks to Lyra, and for a moment, something in him fractures. He steps closer, his voice low enough that only she can hear. Do not fight this, Lyra. Not now. But she sees the truth in his eyes, he's not speaking to save her. He's speaking to save them all. The rival alpha lunges. Kael meets him halfway, the clash of their strength echoing like thunder. Sparks fly as claws meet steel. The crowd chants for blood. Lyra watches, chained, helpless, her soul twisting with every blow. She should want Kael to win. She should want him alive. But a part of her, the part that still remembers her mother's screams, wants them both to burn. Then Kael strikes the rival down. The arena falls silent. The only sound left is Kael's breath, ragged, restrained, furious. He turns toward Lyra. The law demands blood. The law demands submission. The law demands punishment. His hand trembles before he lifts it. His voice is hoarse when he says, "Forgive me." The first lash cuts across her back. The crowd roars. The drums grow louder. Each strike sends pain blooming through her veins like molten silver, but she does not scream. She won't give them that. She lifts her head, meeting Kael's eyes through tears. His expression wavers, torn between rage and regret. The next strike lands harder. The golden cuffs clink with every movement, mocking her restraint. Her knees tremble, her breath hitching with effort, but her spirit refuses to bend. She feels every inch of his agony as if it were her own. Because she knows, he's not punishing her out of hate. He's punishing himself through her. Then it happens. A droplet of her blood falls onto the sacred stones. The sound it makes is soft, a whisper, almost gentle. But the effect is anything but. The ground shudders. The torches flicker out one by one. The air turns sharp, metallic, alive. The mark on her wrist flares like molten light, spilling silver fire across the floor. It moves like water, like breath, like fury set free. The crowd stumbles back in terror as the fire climbs the pillars, spiraling into the sky. Every eye turns to her. Kael steps back, breathing hard, disbelief carved into his features. His voice shakes as he says her name. Lyra. Her body glows from within, veins lit with divine heat. The chains on her wrists melt away, dripping gold onto the stone. The priests scream prayers. The nobles flee. The elders fall to their knees. Lyra lifts her head. Her tears sizzle against her skin. You were meant to protect me, she whispers, her voice breaking under the weight of what he's done, and what she's becoming. Kael's throat tightens. He reaches for her, but she steps back. The silver fire pulses again, and in the next instant, she's gone, vanishing into the storm that rages beyond the walls. Rain hits her face as she stumbles into the forest of ghosts. The trees stretch tall and twisted, their roots tangled like bones beneath the soil. The air hums with whispers of the dead, ancient wolves who never found peace. Each gust of wind feels like a voice calling her name. Her gown clings to her body, soaked and torn. Her bare feet sink into the mud. Blood runs down her spine, mixing with rain. Every step is agony, yet she keeps moving. Because she knows if she stops, she'll break. Not from the pain, but from what she left behind. Kael's face haunts her. His eyes, golden, fierce, human for a moment, replay in her mind. The way his voice cracked when he said her name. The way his hand trembled before he struck. The way her heart refused to hate him, even now. Lightning flashes through the canopy. Somewhere in the distance, wolves howl, not for the hunt, but for mourning. She collapses near a fallen statue, its surface carved with runes of the moon goddess. Her mark still glows faintly, the light pulsing with her heartbeat. She presses her palm to it, trying to will it silent, but it burns hotter, angrier, as if the fire itself refuses to be hidden any longer. She remembers the prophecy the elder whispered in the temple. The flame returns to the Fong. The circle is closing. She doesn't know what it means. She only knows this: whatever has begun tonight cannot be undone. The forest hums around her. The ghosts whisper in tongues older than the stars. And somewhere, far behind, Kael stands in the ashes of his own ceremony, staring at the empty place where she once stood, the queen he struck, the mate he was born to find, the curse he was fated to love. He drops to his knees. His hands tremble, still stained with her blood. The thunder swallows his voice when he whispers, "I was meant to protect you." And in that moment, beneath the storm and the shattered moons, both of them understand the same truth: fate doesn't bind to save. It binds to test. And this was only the beginning. The cave is silent except for the slow drip of water from the ceiling and the ragged sound of her breathing. The air smells of damp stone and ash. Every inhale stings, her wounds, though healing, still burn like liquid fire under her skin. Lyra presses a trembling hand against her side, feeling the heat pulse beneath her ribs where the mark still glows faintly, refusing to fade. The cave walls shimmer faintly with that same light, casting her reflection in fragments, broken, ghostly, unfamiliar. Outside, the night is alive with the restless chorus of the Shadow Mountains. Wolves howl in the distance, their cries rolling through the valleys like thunder. The world seems to hold its breath between storms. She doesn't know how many days have passed since the ceremony, only that the fire inside her hasn't dimmed, and neither has the memory of his eyes as he struck her. The sound of footsteps cuts through the quiet. Heavy. Controlled. Familiar. Her heart stops, then races again. She doesn't need to see him to know who it is. Kael. He steps into the cave, drenched from the rain. His cloak clings to his body, his hair slick against his forehead, eyes burning gold in the half-light. But there's something different about him: no crown, no armor, no guards. Just a man stripped of titles, carrying the weight of what he's done. For a moment, neither of them speaks. The sound of rain fills the silence between them like an unfinished prayer. Lyra draws back, pressing her hand against the rough stone. Her voice comes out raw, scraped thin by days of solitude. "You shouldn't be here." Kael's chest rises and falls. His breath fogs in the cold air. I had to find you. Her lips tremble. Why? To finish what you started? He flinches, the truth in her words slicing through whatever courage he'd gathered. He takes a step closer, and she can feel his warmth reach her before his hand does. He lowers himself slowly, deliberately, until he's kneeling on the wet stone before her. The gesture catches her off guard, the Alpha King, kneeling to the woman he condemned. His voice is low, hoarse. I did what I had to, Lyra. The council, they were ready to kill you where you stood. The lash was the only way to make them believe you'd been punished. It was the only way to save your life. Her eyes shine with tears, catching the faint glow of the mark. You already did, she whispers. The words tremble out of her, fragile but sharp. You broke something that can't be mended. The silence that follows is heavy, thick with everything left unsaid. Kael looks at her, really looks, and for the first time, the weight of centuries in his eyes softens. I see you, Lyra. All of you. Even the fire you try to hide. Her breath catches. She wants to turn away, but something in his voice holds her still, something raw, stripped of command, stripped of power. He isn't the king now. He's the man who's haunted her every thought since the night she fled. He reaches out slowly. She watches his hand, every motion deliberate, trembling. The distance between them feels alive, a fragile line between forgiveness and fury. When his fingers brush against her wrist, her pulse spikes. The contact is faint, but it's enough. The mark beneath her skin ignites, threads of silver flame rippling across her veins. Kael jerks back, startled, staring at the light pulsing under her skin. It's reacting to me, he breathes. Lyra's voice trembles. It doesn't know what it wants. But she's lying. The fire inside her knows exactly what it wants, and it terrifies her. Kael exhales shakily, lowering his hand. You think I don't understand what that is? That I haven't felt it too? Her jaw tightens. You felt enough to hurt me. His eyes close for a long moment. When he opens them again, the golden light in his gaze flickers with regret. If I could take it back. Then why didn't you stop? His throat tightens. Because every choice I make breaks something. And if I hadn't struck you, you'd be dead. I couldn't lose you. The words hang in the air, quiet, desperate, unguarded. Lyra's heartbeat stutters. For a second, the world narrows to the sound of rain and his voice. She can't decide which hurts more, his cruelty or his honesty. Kael shifts closer, his knees pressing into the cold stone. I came here not as your king, he says, his tone barely a whisper now. Not as the man the prophecy bound to you. I came as the one who still believes you were meant for more than pain. Her breath hitches. Her instincts scream to run, but something deeper roots her in place. She looks into his eyes, searching for the lie, but there isn't one. Just exhaustion. Guilt. And a pull she can't explain. The air between them tightens. The rain outside slows to a steady rhythm, like the world itself is waiting. Lyra finally speaks, her voice quiet but sharp enough to cut through the tension. You want me to trust you? Kael meets her gaze. Yes. She laughs bitterly, a sound that doesn't reach her eyes. Trust? You think a word can fix what you broke? No, he says softly. But it's a start. Her chest rises and falls with uneven breaths. And if I can't? His eyes darken, but there's no threat in them, only surrender. Then leave. If that's what it takes for you to be free, I won't follow. The cave holds its breath. The words echo through the air, fragile, final. Lyra stares at him, her hands trembling. She wants to believe him. She wants to stop feeling the fire that ties her to him. But her soul remembers, the way his hand trembled when it touched her, the way his voice broke when he said her name. He's still kneeling, rain dripping from his hair, his cloak pooling around him like shadows. She studies him, the man beneath the title, the creature beneath the crown. and for the first time, she sees the cracks in his armor. "You came alone," she says quietly. "I had to," he answers. "If the council knew, they'd hunt you again. And me." Her throat tightens. "Why risk it?" His gaze softens. "Because some things are worth losing everything for." The words hit her harder than any lash. She looks away, blinking fast, but the tears come anyway. She hates that he can still reach her. She hates that part of her still aches for him. The silence stretches again, filled only by the sound of their breathing. Kael moves slightly, reaching into his cloak. He pulls out a small pendant, a silver crest shaped like a crescent entwined with flame. He places it gently on the ground between them. "It belonged to the first flameborn queen," he says quietly. "She was hunted too. But she didn't die. She chose to rise." Lyra looks at the pendant but doesn't touch it. "And what if I'm not her?" Kael's voice is steady now, certain. "Then you'll become something greater." The fire inside her stirs at his words, responding to the conviction in his tone. She hates how much it calls to her, that same dangerous pull that both frightens and fascinates. He watches her, eyes tracing the faint light on her skin, the tremor in her hands, the ache she tries so hard to hide. "You don't have to forgive me," he says. "But don't let what I did define what you are." Her breath catches again. She looks up at him, truly looks, and for the first time, she sees the man who's been carrying his own chains all along. The fire between them shifts. It's no longer wild, no longer angry. It's quiet, fragile, almost tender. Lyra's voice drops to a whisper. "You want my trust, Kael? Then earn it." He nods slowly, his expression unreadable. "I intend to." Outside, thunder rolls across the mountains. The storm has passed, but the air still hums with its memory. Kael rises to his feet, his gaze never leaving her. "If you tell me to go, I'll go. But if you tell me to stay, I will fight beside you. Not as your king, but as the man who can no longer pretend he doesn't belong to you." Lyra's heart stumbles against her ribs. She wants to speak, but her throat closes. He takes a step back, the distance between them heavy with everything unsaid. The cave feels smaller now, filled with the ghosts of choices neither of them can undo. Finally, she whispers, almost to herself, "I don't know if I can trust you." Kael exhales, his voice barely audible. "Then let time decide." He turns and walks toward the mouth of the cave. The rain has softened to a drizzle, silver under the moonlight. Lyra watches him go, every step he takes pulling something inside her tighter until it hurts to breathe. And when he finally disappears into the darkness, she presses a hand to her heart. The mark beneath her skin flares once more, not in pain, but in recognition. Because deep down, she knows this isn't the end. It's the beginning of something neither of them is ready for. Something that will demand everything they have left to give. And somewhere beyond the mountains, under a fractured moon, Kael stops, looks up at the sky, and whispers to the wind, "Trust me or leave, but don't stop burning." The morning breaks not with light, but with chaos. The first thing Lyra hears is the clatter of steel against stone, the sharp hiss of blades being unsheathed, the echo of boots pounding against the hollow ground outside the cave. Her body reacts before her mind does. The air shifts, trembling with danger. Instinct forces her upright, heart hammering, the faint scent of iron and betrayal already thick in her lungs. Kael is at the cave's entrance before she can speak. His head snaps toward the shadows beyond the rocks, golden eyes narrowing. His posture changes, the king returning in an instant, but the hesitation in his stance betrays him. There's fear there. Not for himself. For her. And then, the soldiers pour in. The crest on their armor glints under the dim morning light. The royal sigil. His sigil. Lyra's pulse stutters. The realization sinks deep, cold, merciless. They are his men. The same soldiers who once hunted her kind through the forests. The first voice she hears among them is deep, steady, and laced with fury. "The king has deceived us. Kael doesn't move. His second-in-command, General Corrin, steps into the cave, broad-shouldered, armor slick with rain. His gaze slices through the air and lands on Kael with something dangerously close to betrayal. You were ordered to bring her to the council, my king. Not to hide her. Lyra's heart lurches. She looks between them, confusion breaking into dread. What is he talking about? Kael's jaw tightens, but he doesn't answer. Corrin's voice hardens. The Flameborn must die. That was the agreement. Her life for peace with the Eastern Pax. The words hit her like a blade. She doesn't even feel her knees give way, only the sharp sting of stone against her palms as she falls. Her breath falters, caught between disbelief and heartbreak. Tell me he's lying. Kael's silence is deafening. He looks at her, his face carved in pain, but the truth sits heavy in his eyes. The same truth she had feared from the start. Lyra shakes her head slowly, her voice cracking under the weight of it. You used me. His lips part, maybe to deny it, maybe to explain, but no words come out. Her chest constricts, her mark flaring hot beneath her skin. The silver light pulses like a heartbeat out of rhythm. The cave begins to hum, energy rippling through the walls. You used me, she repeats, louder this time, the tremor in her voice replaced with something raw, furious. You stood there. You told me to trust you. And all along, I was just a bargain. Kael steps forward, hands raised slightly, his voice low, pleading. It wasn't like that. Don't, she cuts in, her tone sharp enough to silence him. Don't you dare twist this into mercy. Her body trembles, but it isn't fear anymore. It's power, coiled, restless, alive. The mark on her wrist blazes, the fire spreading up her arm like veins of molten silver. The ground beneath her begins to vibrate, small stones lifting into the air. Corrin takes a step back. She's awakening. Lyra's head snaps toward him, her voice turning cold, distant. You think I don't know what I am? You think I haven't felt it every day burning inside me? Her gaze returns to Kael, eyes glowing faintly with the fire beneath her skin. I thought I could be more than what they called me. But maybe you were all right. Kael's voice breaks. Lyra. She takes a step toward him. Maybe I am the monster you fear. The cave erupts with heat. Cracks form along the floor, searing light spilling from them. The soldiers raise their shields, but it's too late, the flames rush outward in waves, licking at the stone, devouring the shadows. Kael shields his face, his cloak catching fire at the edges. Stop, he shouts over the roar. You'll destroy everything. Her laughter cuts through the chaos, brittle, aching. Everything's already gone. The fire surges higher, twisting around her like a living thing. It doesn't consume her, it crowns her. The mark on her wrist expands, blooming across her skin like burning roots, reaching her neck, her eyes. Every flame pulses in sync with her heartbeat. Corrin stumbles back, shouting to the others. Contain her. Before she brings down the mountain. But Kael doesn't move. His eyes stay locked on her, a mixture of awe and terror, love and regret colliding in a single gaze. He whispers to himself, barely audible over the inferno. This is what the prophecy meant. Lyra steps closer, her bare feet leaving glowing prints on the stone. You think you can contain me? Her voice deepens, layered with something ancient. You think your council can trade me like a coin? The ground splits open beneath them. Lava-red cracks snake through the cave, splitting stone and armor alike. A gust of energy throws the soldiers back, some vanish into the blinding light. Kael staggers, reaching out as if his touch could calm the storm. Lyra. Listen to me. But she's far beyond listening now. Her power has taken form, a crown of flame swirling above her head, her hair lifting in the heat, her eyes glowing silver white. Every pulse of her heart sends tremors through the earth. You wanted the monster, she says, her voice trembling with fury and grief. Then let them see it. The explosion rips through the mountainside, light flooding the valley below. Trees ignite, rivers steam, the clouds themselves glow red. The soldiers scream as the blast hurls them into darkness. When the fire fades, silence remains. The cave is gone. The earth smolders. Kael lies among the rubble, coughing, ash clinging to his skin. The air is thick with smoke and loss. He lifts his head slowly, eyes searching the horizon. No Lyra. Only the faint shimmer of fire flickering in the distance, fading into the mist like a ghost. He forces himself up, every muscle screaming in protest. The scent of her still lingers, the echo of her heartbeat faint in the air. The weight of his choice crashes down all at once. He falls to his knees, pressing his palms to the scorched ground where she once stood. His voice cracks. I never meant for this. I never meant to lose you. The wind carries the words away. Above him, the sky darkens. The twin moons vanish behind rolling smoke, and the ancient prophecy burns itself into his mind. The flame will rise when trust is broken. And her wrath will reshape the world. He looks to the east, where the council's banners wave in the distance. Their alliance, their peace, all bought with a lie. He whispers into the wind, more to himself than to anyone else, they'll come for her now. And this time I won't stand with them. His golden eyes flash once more, hardening with resolve. The firestorm dies down, leaving behind the faint echo of a heartbeat carried on the breeze, distant, defiant, alive. And far from the ruins of the mountain, deep within a forest of ash and light, Lyra collapses to her knees. The fire has burned out of her, leaving only exhaustion in its wake. Her hands tremble as she stares at the scorched mark on her skin. It no longer glows. It smolders quietly, like an ember waiting to reignite. Her tears fall freely now, sizzling against her palms. She doesn't know whether she's crying from pain, or from the realization that she's finally become the very thing she feared. In the distance, a single howl rises, low, mournful, broken. Kael's voice. She closes her eyes, the sound wrapping around her like a memory. For a fleeting moment, she almost reaches for him through the bond that still tethers their souls, the same bond she tried so hard to sever. But then she remembers the look in his eyes when the soldiers came. The silence that damned him. The fire stirs again, faint but steady. And when she opens her eyes, the sorrow in them has hardened into something else. Resolve. If the prophecy was written in chains, she would rewrite it in flame. And this time, when the world comes for her, it won't find a frightened girl. It will find the storm they created. The world had changed in her absence. The forests that once whispered her name now burned with the fury of endless war. Smoke curled through the air, thick and bitter, as if the earth itself mourned. Villages lay in ruin, the scent of iron and charred wood clung to the wind. The wolves were no longer one pack, they had fractured, divided by loyalty, by fear, by the shadow of what she had become. And yet, through the ruin, a figure moved, slow, deliberate, unbroken. Lyra. Her steps left trails of glowing embers, the ground searing beneath her bare feet. The fire no longer consumed her, it obeyed her. Each flicker bent in her wake like a silent vow of allegiance. Her hair, streaked with light, framed a face that had lost all softness. What once trembled in fear now stood in command. Her eyes, twin suns burning in the twilight, cut through the smoke and silence alike. Whispers followed her as she entered the wasteland of what was once the capital. The priests halted their chants mid-curse. Soldiers lowered their blades without command. The air itself seemed to bend around her presence, a quiet acknowledgement that something greater than prophecy now walked among them. She did not pause. She did not look back. The fire parted for her like it recognized its source. And at the heart of the chaos, surrounded by shattered banners and fallen wolves, stood Kael. He was no longer the king she remembered. His armor hung broken across his shoulders, smeared with blood and soot. The crown that once marked him ruler now lay half buried in the dirt, cracked down the center. His golden eyes, dulled by battle and regret, found her through the haze. For a moment, the war paused. Even the flames seemed to hold their breath. Lyra, he breathed, his voice hoarse, as though the word itself cost him strength. She stopped a few steps away, her expression unreadable. The distance between them felt heavier than the entire kingdom. "This isn't who you are," he said. His tone was gentle, pleading, the voice of a man trying to reach the ghost of someone he once loved. Her gaze flicked toward him, steady and sharp. "No, Kael," she said, her voice calm, resonant. "This is who I was meant to be." The words rolled through the field like thunder. Above them, the clouds fractured. A low hum began in the air, growing louder, vibrating through the bones of every living creature. The ground pulsed with molten light as if the world itself recognized her claim. The ancient power that had once cursed her now surged freely through her veins, unchained. Kael took a step forward, his hand outstretched. "If you let this power rule you, it will destroy everything we fought for." She tilted her head slightly, eyes softening, not in forgiveness, but in mourning. "Everything we fought for died the moment you traded me for peace." His mouth opened, but she didn't let him speak. "Do you see this kingdom?" she continued, gesturing to the flames encircling them. "This was built on the bones of the cursed. My bloodline burned for centuries under your priest's blessing. They called it justice. They called it order. But it was fear. And now," she lifted her hand. Fire gathered in her palm, swirling like a living sun. "I will show them what true fear feels like." The sky cracked open with the sound of 1,000 howls. From the rift above, light burst through. Not gold, not fire, but silver, ancient, primal. The air filled with movement. Shadows materialized, forming shapes, wolves made of spirit and starlight, their eyes bright as moons. The spirits of the old packs, the ancestors of every bloodline. They circled her in reverence, their ghostly forms gliding through the air, their howls echoing across the ruined plain. Each note vibrated with old power, the song of their freedom long forgotten. Kael dropped to one knee, both in awe and despair. "The spirits," he whispered. "You've called them." "I didn't call them," Lyra said, her gaze never leaving the heavens. "They chose." The high priest stepped forward from behind the fallen temple walls. His robes, once pristine, now bore scorch marks and ash. His eyes gleamed with fanatic desperation. "Abomination," he hissed, raising his staff. "You defy the gods. Your fire desecrates the sacred bond." Lyra turned slowly toward him. The air around her rippled with heat, distorting his form. "You speak of bonds, yet you were the one who severed mine. The curse was the god's will." Her voice sharpened. "No. It was your fear. You twisted their words into chains." The priest struck the ground with his staff. Energy rippled outward, forming a ring of light that clashed against her fire. The collision sent shockwaves through the battlefield, throwing soldiers and debris alike into the air. Lyra's flames roared higher, meeting the priest's divine light in a spiral of power that tore through the clouds. The spirits held louder, their voices blending with the crack of thunder. Kael struggled to rise, shielding his face from the blinding glow. "Lyra! You'll tear the veil apart." She didn't hear him, or maybe she did, and chose to ignore it. The priest shouted above the roar, veins bulging in his neck. "You were meant to die, Flameborn. Your blood was the offering to preserve balance." Her scream answered him, raw, defiant, ancient. The sound shattered the air. "I am not your sacrifice." Her power exploded outward, the flames twisting into shapes of wolves and firebirds, tearing through the priest's defenses. The ground split apart beneath his feet, swallowing his altar whole. His staff cracked, splintering as divine light faltered against her raw, untamed energy. He tried to speak, but the words were drowned in the firestorm. The last thing he saw was her eyes, molten, unrelenting, before the flames consumed him entirely. When the light faded, silence fell. Ash drifted like snow. The battlefield lay still. Kael stood motionless, staring at the smoldering ruin where the priest once stood. Then slowly, his gaze rose to her. Lyra hovered above the scorched earth, her fire dimming to a steady glow. The spirits circled her one last time before ascending back into the sky, their howls fading into the wind. She lowered herself gently to the ground, the heat around her softening into warmth. For the first time, she looked human again. Kael stepped closer, his voice breaking. "You've done it. The curse is broken." Lyra shook her head. "No. Not broken. Transformed." He frowned, confused. "The prophecy was never about destruction," she said quietly. "It was about becoming. The child of fire shall not destroy the moon, but become its light." Her eyes lifted to the silver glow that now bathed the battlefield. "They feared I would burn the world. But I was meant to illuminate it." Kael fell silent, his expression torn between relief and remorse. "Lyra." She looked at him, truly looked at him, and for a moment, the fire inside her dimmed enough for sorrow to surface. "I loved you once," she whispered. "But love cannot grow where trust is buried." He reached for her, desperation trembling in his hand. "Then let me earn it back." Her gaze softened, but she didn't take his hand. "You can't earn what you already spent." She turned away, the moonlight gathering around her like a cloak. Her fire no longer raged. It shimmered, serene, alive. Behind her, Kael called out, a voice cracking under the weight of all the words he never said. "Lyra, if you walk away now, there's no coming back." She paused, her silhouette framed in silver light. "I'm not walking away," she said. "I'm walking forward." And with that, she stepped into the horizon, her fire dissolving into the dawn. The kingdom would speak of her for centuries, some as a savior, some as a destroyer. But those who truly listened to the wind would swear that when the moon rose high, and the wolves howled in unison, they could still feel her warmth in the air. The fireborn who refused to burn for others. The woman who became the light itself. The smoke lingers, curling low over the ruins like a ghost that refuses to leave. The wind hums through the hollow bones of what was once a temple, carrying the scent of scorched stone and sorrow. Beneath the shifting light of the fading moon, Kael kneels, broken armor clinging to him like the last remnant of a dying kingdom. His breath trembles in the silence, his golden eyes fixed on her, the woman who defied gods, destiny, and him. Lyra stands before him, her flame now quiet, her power no longer raging but pulsing softly beneath her skin. The dawn catches her face, pale, fierce, alive. The world has bowed to her, yet she looks down at him not with triumph, but with the ache of something deeper. Something that hurts more than fire ever could. He reaches for her, his hand shaking. Lyra, her name leaves his lips like a prayer and a wound. She doesn't move at first. Her chest rises and falls, slow and steady, as if she's learning how to breathe again after years of suffocation. Then, with a small, hesitant step, she kneels before him. Their faces meet in the half-light, a heartbeat apart. Her fingers hover just above his jaw before finally resting there. The touch is light, trembling, human. "You broke me," she whispers, her voice low, rough, almost tender. "You broke me to save me." Kael's throat tightens. He closes his eyes, his hand covering hers. "And I failed." Now her gaze drifts to the ruined sky, the ashes falling like dying stars. "You didn't fail. You did what you thought would save your world." Her eyes return to his. "But you forgot I was part of that world too." A breath shudders through him, heavy with everything left unsaid. The air thickens around them, too much pain, too much love, too much of everything that once burned between them. Her thumb brushes a streak of soot from his cheek. "I'll never forgive you," she says softly. "Not for the betrayal. Not for the silence." Her voice breaks. "But I'll never stop loving you either." Kael opens his eyes, tears glinting in the flicker of dawn. "Then we are both cursed," he whispers. The words hang between them like a prophecy fulfilled too late. The wind rises again, pulling through her hair, lifting strands that glimmer with fading silver. The fires around them sputter, dim, then die completely. Only the faint glow of her mark remains, soft, pulsing once before beginning to fade. Lyra glances down at it, the crescent of flame now turning pale, cooling into the shimmer of moonlight. "It's ending," she murmurs. Kael's grip tightens. "Don't go." Her eyes flicker with something that might have been a smile. "I'm not going. I'm changing." She leans closer, her forehead brushing his, the warmth of her breath mingling with his. "Every story ends," she whispers. "But not every heart forgets." And then she stands. Kael's hand falls away, fingers grazing air as if trying to hold on to something already lost. Lyra turns toward the horizon, the first light of morning stretching over the ashes. Her bare feet move through the soot, each step leaving a faint trace of silver light. The world watches. The wolves, the wind, the ghosts of the fallen, all silent witnesses to the moment the Flameborn walks into dawn. Kael watches her go, his heart caught between love and ruin. The light grows stronger. The ruins behind her fade into shadow. Her mark flickers once more, then dissolves completely. Her fire is gone, yet its warmth lingers, carried by the breeze that sweeps through the silent field. She pauses at the ridge, the rising sun painting her silhouette in gold and silver. For one fragile moment, she looks back. Their eyes meet, his full of regret, hers full of peace. And then she closes her eyes. The screen fades to light. Her voice lingers in the air, soft, haunting, eternal. "Would you have chosen her, or feared her too? Would you have seen the curse, or the courage it took to bear it? Is she a savior, or a storm that never ends? Because every flame has a choice, to burn, or to become the light that guides. And maybe, just maybe, love is the only fire that never truly dies. If her story burned within you, if her pain felt like your own, then don't let it fade. Stay. Listen. Feel. Subscribe to Sophie's Romance Collections, where every tale bleeds, heals, and burns anew. The dawn that once felt eternal begins to dim, swallowed by a strange stillness that creeps through the ruins like a living thing. The golden hues fade into gray. The warmth that Lyra left behind flickers, then dies completely. The temple stands silent, its stones cracked, its symbols charred, but beneath that silence, something ancient begins to stir. The air thickens. A faint vibration trembles beneath the earth, subtle at first, like the heartbeat of something vast waking from centuries of sleep. Dust drifts from the ceiling. The torches along the broken pillars flare and then gutter out, one by one, leaving the world in a trembling half-dark. Behind the throne where Kael still kneels, a faint shimmer coils in the shadows. It starts as a whisper, soft, deliberate, crawling along the stone like the breath of a ghost. She is not the only one with fire in her veins. The voice is deep, layered, older than the ruins themselves. It carries the weight of centuries, ancient, cruel, and coldly amused. It echoes through the hall, wrapping around the broken columns, seeping into the cracks of the stone, into the trembling hearts of those who remain. Kael's head lifts slowly. His pulse quickens. "Who's there?" His voice wavers, raw from battle and grief. The silence answers him, then breaks with a low rumble from beneath the earth. The throne behind him shifts, stone grinding against stone. What once seemed solid begins to split. A line of crimson light snakes along the cracks of the marble, pulsing, alive. The carvings of wolves etched into the throne begin to glow, their eyes igniting with a molten red flame. Kael staggers to his feet, backing away as the ground shudders. The air grows hotter, oppressive, tasting of smoke and blood. The moon outside changes. Its silver glow turns dark, and within seconds, it bleeds red, a deep, terrible red that bathes the world in shadow. The wind howls through the ruins, carrying the sound of distant wolves crying in confusion and pain. Kael grips his chest, the memory of Lyra's touch still burning there. He whispers her name once more, desperate, broken, as if her voice could still quiet the chaos rising around him. But this isn't her fire. This isn't her light. This is something older. Something forgotten. Something that never should have been awakened. The voice returns, closer now, a serpent's hiss sliding into the cracks of his mind. She thought she was the last of her kind. A low laugh follows, dark, cruel, echoing through the chamber. But she was only the spark, not the flame. Kael's heart pounds. He stumbles toward the entrance of the temple, his boots scraping through ash. The walls around him pulse with light, symbols rearranging themselves into patterns that make no sense, symbols he can't read but can feel deep in his bones. They hum with hunger. With intent. A gust of wind sweeps through the temple. The ashes on the floor lift and swirl, forming shapes, faces, eyes, fragments of something not quite human. Kael raises his arm to shield himself, his eyes wide as a vision flashes across his mind, another child, much younger, standing beneath a dying moon, fire coiling around their hands, their eyes glowing just like Lyra's once did. But this fire is darker. Wilder. Twisted. Somewhere far beyond the temple, in a village swallowed by the forest, a child wakes screaming. The mark of flame glows across their wrist, bright, untamed, burning through the air like a signal. The cry echoes across the night, sharp and piercing, as if the world itself just remembered what it lost. The wolves in the distance howl. One by one, they answer the call, their voices trembling with something not entirely natural. Kael falls to his knees again, the tremor of realization shaking through him. His lips part, breath shallow. No. The ground quakes harder. Cracks rip through the floor, lines of crimson light branching out like veins. The air hums with energy so thick it hums against his skin. From the deepest part of the temple, a dark archway long sealed by stone, a faint glow begins to spread. It's not Lyra's silver fire. It's something colder, darker, and far more dangerous. The shadows stretch and twist, taking shape, forming the outline of a figure, tall, cloaked, its eyes two burning coals. It stands still, but its presence fills the room, ancient and immense. When it speaks again, its voice is not one but many, layered and haunting. The child of fire has risen, a pause. The air trembles. Now the shadow of flame will answer. Kael can barely breathe. Every instinct in him screams to run, to fight, to shift, but something stronger roots him in place, fear, and the knowledge that destiny is not yet done with him. Outside, the wind shifts. The forest bends beneath the weight of unseen power. The rivers hiss as if boiling, and the sky, still bleeding red, cracks open with thunder. In the distance, Lyra stops. She feels it, the pull, the echo of something familiar yet wrong. Her hand trembles, her pulse quickens. The mark on her wrist, which had faded, flickers back to life. Her breath catches. No, she whispers. It can't be. But deep down, she knows. Fire never truly dies. It spreads. Back in the ruins, Kael's eyes lift to the shadowed figure. The throne behind it crumbles, dust falling like snow. The creature, or god, or curse, steps forward, its voice soft and almost kind. She freed herself, it says. Now I will free the rest. Kael's voice shakes. Who are you? The figure tilts its head. The shadows ripple, and for a brief moment, Kael sees a face, a reflection of Lyra's, younger, untouched by pain, but with eyes that burn with something terrifyingly pure. It smiles. I am what comes next. The wind howls through the broken walls. The ground splits open entirely, swallowing the remnants of the temple in a surge of red light. Kael falls backward, the world tilting into chaos once more. The last thing he sees is the figure stepping into the fire, unburned, walking toward the horizon where Lyra disappeared. The earth groans. The sky bleeds. The wolves cry out in mourning and warning all at once. Somewhere, far away, Lyra feels the ground tremble beneath her feet. She looks back at the ruins, at the kingdom she left behind, and the fear she thought she'd buried stirs again. She knows this feeling. The fire has chosen another. The mark glows once more across her wrist, brighter this time, pulsing with a new rhythm, one that doesn't belong to her. And then, the whisper returns, faint but clear, carried on the wind, curling around her like smoke. The war for the true alpha has just begun. The screen fades to black. Only the echo of fire remains.